If he stole and he didn't swear and he's coming clean, there he doesn't have to go all the way to Modai to see that it should get returned. So the Gemara has a kasha. We know Rabbi Kiva has a rule, apparently across the board, whether or not there was a shvuah made or not, you have to pay each one. You have to. Their shiloh was expressed in the case of if you stole from one of five and you don't know who you stole from. Rabbi Kiva says no. Loi zu derech motziyosim de'aver. He has to pay each one. So basically, we're talking about the shipping costs to pay your chayiv back. If it's just mail, that's one thing. But sometimes it's paying for people who you don't need to pay in order to make sure that the person that you're responsible to pay gets paid back. So Rabbi Kiva holds you got to do whatever it takes. And no matter whether or not a shavu was made. So that's not consistent with our Mishnah. Rabbi Tarfon, on the other hand, says you don't have to swear. You don't have to swear. I'm sorry, even if you didn't swear, or I'm tripping up on my words. Even if you did swear, Rabbi Tarfon holds you can also be maniach kazela b'nei masalik, and therefore the Gemara had a problem with who is the author of our Mishnah. So the last step of the Gemara that we're holding by is that when did Rabbi Tarfon say maniach kazela b'nei masalik? That's only if he didn't swear. But if he swore, then he'd have to be maniach. Then he'd have to pay each one. Or in the case of our Mishnah, he would have to run even to Modai to return the money. But the Gemara asks, if we're speaking about somebody who's coming clean, someone who's doing tshuva, because that's what we're talking about. The halacha of Karen v'chaimish v'asham applies to somebody who stole, he swore, and now he wants to do tshuva. So we tell him that he has to, in order to fulfill a full tshuva, he has to make sure to get the money back. Well, if that's the case, if this is a guy who wants to be Yosy Yidei Shemayim, and he wants to pay back, well then, even if he didn't swear, if he stole and now he wants to pay back, yes, but if he wants to mamish come clean and wipe out his averos, he'd have to do that anyway. So we're back to the same question: why is it that our Mishnah only says that with a shvuah do you have to run even to Madai to pay back, and you can't just say, "Come get it over here," and that's where we up to. And which was the top line of Daf Kuf Daled Amud Aleph, Ella Amar Rava. So the way Rashi learns, Ella Amar Rava, Rava is saying a new pshat. He's not saying that our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Kiva, and he's not saying that our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Tarfon. Rather, our Mishnah can equally be Sai according to Rabbi Kiva and Sai according to Rabbi Tarfon. Because Shani Masnisen, in the case of Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Tarfon, where are they arguing? They're arguing where you stole from one of five people. You don't know who you stole from. So there's a machlokes if you could make hashava just by saying, here's the money, Ma'aseh Zela. Once you finally figure out who is the nigzal, you can come and get it. Where Rabbi Kiva says, no, you got to pay. Shiny Masnitin, but our Mishnah is speaking in a case where you know who you stole from. It's just a matter of getting it there. It's a very big expense to get the money to the hands of the nigzal. So Shiny Masnitin, even the Yoda, Leman Gosling, you know who the nigzal is, and you're mighty to him. You're ready to pay back. Kivan the Efshir lahadura mamna l'marei, since it's very easy to get the money back to the original owner because you know who it's going to. Therefore, Havalei, command Amarlei, Yehu li biyotcha. It's like the Ganiv tells the nigzal, this money that I have earmarked to pay back to Gsela, it's for you. It's sitting right over here. It's for you. I'm going to hold on to it until you're ready to come get it. Hilchach, therefore, as far as being Mekayim, my Chiv Mamanis, even if I'm Moida and I want to do Tshuva, I don't have to actually get it into your hands. I could just say, here it is. You're good to, you can come get it whenever you want. And I'll be Yosy even Yidei Shemayim. However, Nishba, even the boy kapara, since he needs a special kapara for shvuah, lo isagi adamatili. There he has to get the money back to the hands of the nigzal. Halo yishtaba, but if he didn't swear, then havagabe pikadon, the money could be in the hands of the nigzal, but not as a gazlan anymore, but as a shomer. I'm holding it for you. Ada Osi v'shakale. And that will be good enough even to be Yosy Yedei Shemayim. But if there was a shavu involved, you have to bring a carbon, there you have to bring it directly back. Now let's see Rashi inside. Elo Amar Rava. Masnisin dever koilhi. V'loidami le'ein yodeya. And it's not similar to when you don't know which one of these five people are the nigzal. The Hasan by Nishma by Noy Nishma, who the pligi Rav Tarfon Rabbi Kiva. There, it doesn't make a difference if the Gazlan had already sworn falsely about this to deny it or not. Sai Rav Tarfon and Sai Rabbi Kiva argue in both cases. Linyan Dina. And the Machlekes isn't in where the Bezin could force him. Rav Tarfon loy mechayev lahachser layara nigzal. Rav Tarfon never requires that you need to make sure, as a Gazlan, you need to make sure that the money reaches the hand of the nigzal. Rabbi Kiva mechayev. And that's Avagav the Leinish. I behind the Parchas Le'il, I the Gemara asked earlier, the Rabbi Kiva Afagav the Lo Yishtaba. The Gemara asked, even if you didn't swear, Rabbi Kiva is not a good Hashava. So how could Rabbi Kiva be consistent with our Mishnah, who says only if you did swear? La Pirchihi. That's not shver anymore. Zot Rava. The Hasam, Dinhu, when it's 1 of 5, there, Afagav the Lo Yishtaba, even if you didn't swear, the svar is the Yasir L'chol Echad. Why? Thank you so much. And because he doesn't know who he stole from. He wasn't Mekayim anything. He's not going to be Mekayim Beishav as a Gzela by never defining who belongs to. But here in our Mishnah, the Yod Laman Gozel, he knows exactly who he stole from. And Umaydile, and he is agreeing to him, I stole from you, and I'm wanting to pay you back, here's the money. So there, Misha Saidah, from the moment he says, I'm moided that I owe you the money, and here it is, and he has the money, the mezumin who lahashiv, the money is prepared, ready to be given back to the nigzal. And here's the chiddush: havigabei kipikadin. It suddenly transitions from a dover hanigzal to a dover hamufkat. It now becomes a pikadin. Now instead of the gazlan taking it away from the nigzal, now the gazlan is holding it and protecting it on behalf of the nigzal. Hilchach nishbat chila. If you swore first. Then, even though you have it as a pikadon, but in order to have the kapara for the shvua, it has to reach his hands. However, it was lo nishba. It's like it reaches hands from a monistic perspective because you're now holding it on behalf of the nixel. Beautiful. So that is Rava's pshat. Allah Lamaisa, our Mishnah fits in nicely. Sai according to Rabbi Kiva, Sai according to Rabbi Tarfon. I'll point out that Tosfos holds that this is only in Reb Tarfon. Tosfos takes out the Ella Omar Rava. He just says Omar Rava. Rava is just adding on to the pshat that we said. That's according to Reb Tarfon. The problem is, in logic, Rashi seems to have a very good argument that Rabbi Kiva should be Maida here. That if it's no Shavua, it's like a Pikadon. If there is a Shavua, I have to give it back. So why does he learn otherwise? So Tosfos says you're going to have to say in Rabbi Kiva, this Svaras HaGemara Haya, even the Kanas Rabbi Kiva, once Rabbi Kiva says this Kanas, you can't just Menich Gezela B'neinu Mustalik. You have to give one back to each of the people who claim that they're the Nigzal. We'll say B'chol Makom Kanas. Then Rabbi Kiva applies it across the board. Even though we've shown through logic that there's a distinction, and if you know who the Nigzal is, it should be able to transition to be a Pekadon. But once Rabbi Kiva says that you have to pay back each one, it applies across the board. Kiva and the Avodah Asura v'lo yechal, and he won't make this chiluk between Gazal Echad Michamisha and our case where you know who the nigzal is. Okay, Gavaltik. Now we have a whole new shot. Itmar, we have a machlokes shliach she'asai be'edim. What is the definition of shliach she'asai be'edim? So Rashi, Reuben sheyesh le'mois b'yad Shimon. Reuben has money in the hands of Shimon. It sounds from Rashi like it's a halva. So Shimon owes Reuben $100,000. There are those who might learn that it's a pikadon, but there's money in Shimon's hands that needs to find its way back to Reuben. Umina shliach be'edim l'kablam himen. Reuben took a shliach, he took a barrel, and he, in front of Edim, he was mamana, I'm making money, you barrel, to pick up my money. L'kablam himenu unesanam loy. And to give it back to him. Okay? And Shimon gave it to him. So I made or Reuven made a shliach by Edom. You're going to be the shliach to pick up the money. He went to Shimon, and Shimon gave him the money. Whose shliach is he? Is he Reuven's shliach? Is it as if it was already returned to Reuven, or do we say that this shliach is acting on behalf of Shimon? Rachis Amar have a shliach. It's a good shliach, and therefore, it's Rashi. What if an oinus happened along the way? Pater balabai shenostamli. Shimon is pater because we say the shliach represents Reuven, and the moment the shliach receives it, it's in Reuven's rishus. And if something happens to it in transit, it's Reuven's loss. Rabba Omar loy have a shliach. It's not a shliach, and therefore Shimon will be responsible for it if something happens and the money doesn't reach Reuven's hands. Rabbi Chisda have a shliach. It's a shliach, and he's a shliach of Reuven, who's receiving the money. Because lahachi tarche v'ukme be'edim. Why would he make such a big deal and set up Edom even to be Miman the Shliach? It must be the Leiku Birshusei. To be Miman a real Shliach, we'll call it a Shliach like Kabbalah, so to speak. He's working for the Makabel, he's working for Reuven, and it's a Shliach, and once Shimon gives it to the Shliach of Reuven, it's as if he gave it to Reuven. Rabbi Amar, no such thing. Lo have a Shliach. Why is it not a Shliach? I made Edom. Hachika Amar. All I meant to say when I sent a Shliach to Shimon to ask for the money, I didn't mean to say that he's my shliach. I just mean to say, inish memnahu. I'm testifying to you that I trust this guy. And therefore, isamchas sumoich. If you want to rely on him, you could rely on him. I think he's a reliable guy. You're just giving him a good reference. You could send him with him. I think he's a safe guy. But he's your shliach. And therefore, until the money reaches me, you're going to be liable. So that is the shayla. So I mentioned earlier a question of, is this a pikadon that he's picking up, or is this a halva? So here's where the nafkamina is. Let's say it's not a shliach, okay? Let's say it's not a shliach of Reuven, it's a shliach of Shimon. Why would Shimon be chayiv if an oinus happens along the way? There's a machlokes about shomer, shemasar l'shomer, right? So if it was a pikadon, and Shimon is giving it to this barrel, the shliach, we have a machlokes of shomer, shemasar l'shomer if it's considered negligence on behalf of the shomer, right? So one of the svaras is the reason why you can't give it to somebody, even if that somebody is very reliable. And the Gemara says, even if you're a shomer chinam and your liability is limited to pshia, but you're giving it to a shomer socher who has a higher level of liability, even then you can't give it. Why? Because the owner of the object could say, Ein ritzoni sheyehei pigdoni b'yadacher. I trust you. I gave you my pigdon as a shomer chinam. Him, I don't care how much money is being paid. I don't trust him. Here, that argument is obliterated because it's Reuven who's telling to the shliach, and he's saying he's a trustworthy guy. So Mimanashach, Shimon should not be chayiv. So that is the kasha that Tosfos asks. A beautiful kasha. Rabba Amar lo have a shliach. Yesh makshim. There are those who ask. The Rabba Adarabba. They ask a stira. No, I don't think this is what I'm looking for. Haki garmali ish inish mehemnu. Tamer freiktaises. Amai chayiv hu minadin ba'achrayis oinis haderech. Why would Shimon be chayiv, even if this man is Shimon's shliach? Still, why should Shimon be chayiv if something happens? The oinis on the way. Reuven, the receiver, cannot say ein ritzoni sheyeh bigdoni b'yadacher. He can't say that I'm not happy with your shliach. Even the toughest you yourself declared him as somebody who you consider trustworthy person. If you trust a guy, you don't trust a guy. So
Just to verzechten, dan moet ik niet veel voor dat.
It's not so slander. The Yeshloim is Aktoisis, the Nira, the Afilahu Atzmoy Hiviyoi Bederach. In this particular case, even if Shimon himself would have delivered the money along the same route that this shliach traveled, then he would be chayiv. You know why? Because this route was a known dangerous route. The pshia hu oisa shemalichai b'derech b'makim ploini sheyesh bo sakana. Uba'korcha chayiv lishmor achiach shirenuloi b'yishu. The chiyuv of Shimon is to protect it, even machmas, anything, until it gets to Reuven's hands. That is the chiyuv. If you're going to travel through perilous property, to perilous terrain, then you'd be chayiv yourself. So einachanami, there's no more taina of ein returning shaping done biyad acher. But even if Shimon himself traveled this route and then oynis happens, he would still be chayiv, because this is considered a pshia because it's in a dangerous route. Gewaltig. So therefore, even if you learn it's a pekadon, you wouldn't have the taina of ein returning shaping done. Okay, so let's see the Gemara weiter. So we have this machlokes. If I'm memana shliach beidim, is that a real aminu shliach, or is it a good reference? Tanan, let's see if we can bring a raya from a Mishnah. Hashoyel es apara. Somebody borrowed a para from his friend. The shilcha, and he had to go pick it up. I believe he was going to pick it up, and if the article says otherwise, please correct me. And he was going to pick it up. The shilcha b'yad benoi b'yad abdoi b'yad shluchai. He sent it. The mashal sent the animal to the shoyel with someone that he knows, his son, his eved, or his shliach. Oy b'yad benoi b'yad abdoi b'yad shluchai shel shoyel. Or he sent it to the shoyel through the shliach that the shoyel sent to pick it up. Umesa, and it dies along the way. Potter, the shoyel is potter. Why is it Rashi? The lekama b'rshus shoyel, it had not yet reached the rishus of the shoyel. Leischayev ha'intin, to be mechayev the shoyel with ointin. Ad sheyomer loy mi piv l'shalchalei b'yad b'noi. If I just send somebody to pick it up, that's not me making a shliach. That's just me giving him an option to send it with my son, my evet, my shliach. But it's not mine yet. It's not like I was memana the shliach. So what type of shliach are we talking about that the shoyel sent to pick up the animal? Hai shluchai heichadami. What was the case? Idaloi asav edim. If he was not memana, this shliach of edim, mino yadina. I don't understand. How do you know that he's a shliach? Well, from where do we know that he's a shliach? Because he said he's a shliach. Who said he could be believed? So there must be edim over here. And therefore, when he goes to the shoyel, to the mashal, it says, I'm coming to pick up the para, the mashal says, how do I know you're a shliach? Yes, edim. Edim say, testify that he was appointed as a shliach. El also edim. So that's a mamish the case of Rebbe Chisda and Rabbah, the Katani the Potter. And nevertheless, it says that we don't consider this a shliach of the shoyel. It turns out being a shliach of the mashal. So you see, even though the shoyel was memana, the shliach be'edim, it's still not considered a shliach. It just is a good reference, but the shliach here is now representing the mashal. So kashal Reb Chisda, it's going to be shrein Reb Chisda. So Reb Chisda had to deflect other kashas as well. And you know what he said when he wanted to deflect the other kashas? Really, it's speaking where there's no edim. And since there's no edim, that's why this person is not a shliach of the shoyel. How does the mashal know that this guy's legit, that he was appointed as a shliach? The shoyel didn't send to the mashal some unknown random person. He sent his apprentice. He sent somebody who lives by him. He sent somebody who everybody knows there's a relationship. If I want to borrow something from you and I send my son to pick it up, you obviously know I sent it. I didn't send a stranger. So that's how I know. There, even though you know there's an association, and that's why you're giving this to the shliach, it doesn't mean that there was an official meaning shliachs by the shoyel, and therefore the mashal is responsible for this object until it reaches the actual hands of the shoyel. Hakanami, so to answer this kasha as well, I can say b'schira lakita. So that kasha was deflected, so now we'll try kasha number 2, which is our own Mishnah. And that's why this is doing in our sugya. Tanan we learned, a gazlan owes money, and he wants to pay back. He wants to bring his carbon to pater himself from the chet that he had. that he swore falsely and he stole. So he's not allowed to give this money to the son of the nigzal or to the shliach of the nigzal. So how exactly did this person become a shliach of the nigzal? If the nigzal did not appoint this third party shliach with Edim, mina yedina, how could the Goslin give it over to that man? He doesn't even have proof that this fellow, in fact, had a minu shlichus. And much of the Edim come along and tell the Goslin, this barrel, he was appointed as a shliach by the nigzal to retrieve the money. So once again, it's fair on the Bchista, because the Bchista holds that if it was also by Edim, it is a good minu shlichus, and from our Mishnah you see it's not. The same shot. There's no Edim here. So how does the Goslin know that this shliach is a legitimate shliach of the nigzal? Because there's an association there. So you're learning of Bchista that in our Mishnah there was no Edim. And if there would have been Edim, what if the shliach came along and actually had Edim that said, I was nismazna as a shliach from the nigzal? What would Reb Chisda hold? Hachanami to have a shliach. So you're telling me there, Reb Chisda would agree that it's a shliach, and he could give the money, and he could be yoitza the chazaras hagzela by giving it to the shliach? If that was the case, let's look at the Sefer of the Mishnah. We learned it in our very Mishnah. Adatani Sefer of Al-Noisin, who l'shliach bezdin, you can give it to a shliach bezdin. It seems like that's the closest person that the Mishnah could come up with where it would be considered a good ve'eshav as exela. Why go to a shliach bezdin? L'floig v'l'sni b'didei. I could even find a personal private shliach that would also be considered a shliach, and you could make your ve'eshav to him. And that is, let's look at the Bach who adds a little bit of comments over here. A shliach that you did not appoint with Edim, that's the shliach that the Goslin cannot be Mekayim Hashava by returning it. But a shliach that it was made with Edim, that was appointed with Edim by the Nigzal, Hachanami dav shliach, and he should be able to give it to him as well. So why does the Mishnah say only if you give it to a shliach bezdin, even if you give it to a personal shliach? If the shliach was appointed with Edim, in fact, it would be a good shliach, and the Heshiv would you do Mekayim the Veish. That is the halacha. But the Mishnah didn't want to use that case as an example of when you can give it back to the shliach. You know why? Because it depends who appointed the shliach. It's not a clear-cut halacha. Because shliach bezdin, if it was a shliach bezdin, this was a known shliach of the bezdin that he gave the money to. It doesn't matter if he was appointed, he wasn't appointed. He's a designated person. He's like a vote collection box. You could give it to him. It's a method that works no matter what. Shliach, psikale. That's a clear psak. That's what the Mishnah said it. But shliach sha'asa be'edim, it really depends who made it. The chiyasa nigzal hu dav shliach. If the nigzal appointed him with edim, yes, he's a good shliach, and the Goslin can be mekayim as a shava by returning it to that shliach. But also Goslin, if the Goslin appointed the shliach, then lo yav shliach. Then the vada wouldn't work, because that's not considered a chazara when he gave it to the hands of the shliach. And therefore, like psikale, it's not a clear psak, and the Mishnah likes sticking to clear psak. But avada, if the nigzal was memana the shliach beidim, avada you would be mekayim the veheshiv according to this assumption that we just made, that a shliach bezdin, it's clear cut, no matter who was memana him, he is a person that you could return the money to. That's not a unanimous halacha, because we're going to quote now a Tana that holds even a shliach bezdin, it's not so poshut that you could return money with him. The Tanya Rab Shimon ben Elazar Omer, shliach bezdin sha'asei nigzal. What if the nigzal asked the shliach bezdin to take care of this, to pick it up for him? V'loy asay Goslin, and the Goslin did not appoint him. Oy asay Goslin, or the Goslin appointed this shliach, and he told the shliach, I'm giving this to you, that it should be mekayim v'heshiv to give it to the nigzal. V'shalach halah v'not l'shaloi, and the nigzal sent his own shliach to greet the shliach bezdin and pick it up and get it and retrieve it from the shliach bezdin. Not l'shalom yodai potter. Potter meaning the shliach and the nigzal retrieved it, He didn't get it back to the nixel yet, and it got damaged or lost. It was nenas in the hands of that second shliach, the shliach of the nixel. We say he's potter. Mashma, if something would have occurred while it was still in the hands of that first shliach bezdin, the gazlan would be chayiv. So you see that even though it's a shliach bezdin, if the gazlan made it and it wasn't the nixel who made it, that's still not going to be a good shliach. So you see that this Mishnah argues on the assumption that we're standing in our Mishnah that it's a davar psika. Sorry?
Made it, actually.
Right, so I was struggling. What does it mean a shliach bezdin if I made it? So it sounds like this is a guy, the way I understood it, I might be wrong. If the article says something different, please tell me. But I thought that what it means is this is a guy who works for Bezdin. He's known to facilitate returns. And the question is, who approached him first? If the guy doesn't approach him, I want you to facilitate this, then it wouldn't be considered that it's a hashava until it gets back to the nigzal. If the nigzal asked him, then it would be. So you can ask me. So any shliach is like that. Why do I need it to be a shliach bezdin? What's the advantage of a shliach bezdin? I don't know. Could be people use them. They were agents of the court, but I don't know the answer. So Zok to my Nechami, Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar, Damar Tavayu, new subject. Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar both say exactly like Rabbi Chisda said. Shliach she'asa be'edim have a shliach. So the Gemara, the same kasha that the Gemara asked on Rabbi Chisda, the Gemara is asking on Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Elazar, who say the same thing as Rabbi Chisda. So they came up with a different teretz. The Gemara says our Mishnah might be b'mamtzi loy shliach. You know why? It's not a good shlichus. You know you can't give it to a shliach because the case was b'mamtzi loy shliach. It's not be'edim. So if it's not be'edim, you don't have a cash anymore. Why you can't be mekayim mitzvah shava? The question is, if it's not be'edim, then the question is mina yadina. How in the world does the gazla know that this is actually a legitimate shliach of the nigzal that he can give it to? Zoktamar to mamsla. What does that mean? The Amalei, the nigzal sent a shliach, and he said, "Isli zuzi kabi planet. Oh, you're going to Toronto? Do me a favor. Chaim Yankel, Toronto owes me $100,000. He's not sending me the money, so it's probably not because it's probably not because he's a low life and he's stealing from me. He probably just couldn't find a way to send it, right? So you know what? It's chazile. Introduce yourself to him. Tell him that you are here from Lakewood and you're going back to Lakewood and you are solving his problem. Now he has a way of getting you back to cash. I'm sure he'll hug you and he'll be so excited because of course he wants to pay me back. Maybe it's just that he couldn't find somebody to send it. So since he approaches me from the nigzal, I believe that he's from the nigzal because otherwise, who are you? You know, where did you come from? Zogt Rashi. You don't have to say it's speaking that the shliach was appointed of Edom. So it's not relevant to the shayla of Reb Chisda. Meaning, do me a favor, introduce yourself to the Gazlan when you're there in Toronto, and tell him, if you have any money that you want to send, I'm more than happy to take that money for you. Or you can answer the same shot as Reb Chisda did, that the Gazlan knew that this person was an acquaintance, he had a connection with the Nigzal. Gewaltig. Zog to Gemara weiter. Amar b'domar Shmuel. Turning on to Amud Beis. Ein meshalchen mois b'diyukni. If someone comes and says, I have a diyukni, I'm a good shliach, send it with me. Zogt Rashi, what is the definition of diyukni? Moser loy bala b'kodin l'shliach simonim. I gave the bala b'kodin to the shliach who I'm sending to pick it up. I gave him simonim because of chayis my bigarish. I wrote him a letter and I put my chasima on, even if it's not my handwriting. It could be like a symbol. Umasruloi, and the shliach gave this over to the shomer. The owner gave it to the shliach, and he told the shliach, and he told the shliach, lech v'yisrael leplani, go present yourself to the shomer, and then he'll give you the money. He'll release the money. Rashi, Tosha says a little bit more detail. Pirshim Omer LeSeifer, the owner told the Seifer, Kseiv LePloini, Sheyishlach Limois Aydei Ploini. So he didn't write this note in his own handwriting. He had a Seifer write it. Dear Shomer, please give your money to Beryl, who I'm sending to you to pick it up. He didn't sign with a signature, which would be clear that he is the author of this letter. He used a symbol, like we find there were Gedolim that used to use symbols to sign. Even if the Eidim is signed on this star, that we know that this symbol represents the Mishaleach, represents the owner of the item. Ein moil, it doesn't work. What if the Eidim are signing on the star saying, yes, we witnessed that the Baal Pekot wants you to send it with him, wants him to be a shliach? That works. Here the Eidim are not signing about anything that the Baal Pekot said. They're just signing that this is the Baal Pekot signature. But it's only the star that's testifying. If the Eidim themselves in their signature are verifying that we know that that's what the owner said, that's a different story. Then us have a shliach will be a shliach. Inami ikasav b'ksav yodai. If it was written in the handwriting, not by a cipher, but the handwriting of the owner, that would also be good. Shlach alidei ploini, please, Mr. Shomer, send me back my stuff through this fellow. Frank Tosfos, it seems like the problem is that symbol, that signature symbol, is not enough of a verification, in fact, that it was written by the owner. Frank Tosfos, you find in Shas that those symbols are very reliable. One used to sign, he made a picture of a fish, that was a signature. Makusa, I believe, was a mast of a ship. Yes, everybody might recognize Rabbi Yashiv's signature. They're reliable. If you decide to use Mickey Mouse as your symbol, as your signature, that would not necessarily be considered a good proof. Okay, so that is our question. Ein mishach and mois, but the yukni ba'afilu edem chasum and alel.
Shal is good that the Yukni mind. It's not if he sent it, or he said that you're my shlich, that as soon as you...
Right, so that is the shayla. The shayla is the problem because this signature is not a reliable signature, or because the signature doesn't prove anything. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, im edem chasum and alel, if there are actually edim that signed on it, then mishachen, you could send it. So he argues, he holds if edim signed and verifies that this is my symbol, then you would be able to give it to him. Amar l'shmuel. Amr, they said, l'shmuel, according to Shmuel, that you cannot give back something through a shliach that only has a diyukni, my takanta. So how am I ever going to retrieve stuff? If I have to retrieve some of my belongings that somebody has that's far away, how am I ever going to get it back? Zaktimar Kodabar Baba. Here's a story with Baba. Have a master Zuzli with Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama. Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama owed Rabbi Abba money, and Rabbi Abba was trying to collect on that money. So Amalei the Rav Safra, Rabbi Abba told Rav Safra, "V'hadid Ozus, if you're going to be there in Toronto anyway, where Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama lives, if you're going to come back, do me a favor. I sinu neheli, bring me the money. Bring me the money. Go to Rabbi Yosef Bar Chama and ask him for the money." When Rabbi Safra got there, he didn't deal with Rabbi Yosef, who was the shomer. He was dealing with Rabbi Yosef's son, Rava. Amalei Rava Barei, because of his kabalti. The star that you got that says that you're a shliach, does it say his kabalti? Meaning that it's as if when I'm giving it to you, it's as if the mishalech was makabelit. It's as if a rabbi accepted it. So that means when I give it to you, I'm completely indemnified. Amalei Loi, the shliach said, no, he didn't say that. Ihachi zil berei should go home. I'm not giving you the money now. The yichtlev, I want to see that it should say in the star his kabalti, so that now I'm going to have the star that says a testimony that this money was already received by Rabbi Abba. L'saif, he came back and he said, "No, you know what? Don't even do that for me." Amar lei ikasav lachnami is kabalti. Even if you bring a letter from Rabbi Abba that says it's kabalti, I'm still not going to give you the money. Lav klumu means nothing because dilma da osis shochiv Rabbi Abba. V'naflu zuzi kamayasmi. Maybe even though you are going to deliver to me such a document, maybe after it was signed, before I received it, Rabbi Abba died, and it's not even Rabbi Abba's place to say his kabalti. I need it from the assignment. So therefore, this kabalti Rabbi Abba left plumo. So I'm still not releasing the money because there's still exposure on my part. So Rav Sham says, so what paper do you want me to bring? Tell me what you want me to bring so that I can get the money out of you. Zil nikninu loch agavara. Tell Rav Bava, that he should be magnet to you the money that I have, the pikotin that I have. He should be magnet to you so that it actually belongs to you. And then Visa'at, you come, now it's your money, and you will write us a star, kabalti. When I give it to you, you'll write me the receipt that you accepted it. That I'll accept because that's airtight. I've eliminated my liability. The other Papa, just like Rav Papa, have a massive tracer alfi zuze beichizoi. Beichizoi owed him 13 treasures 12,000 zuz. A kaninina halei l'Rav Shmuel bar Abba agav asifa de beise through kinyan agav by being magnet him part of his house. He was a magnet to the shloimer, to the shliach, and then he also when Shmuel bar Abba retrieved the money successfully and he came back to the city. I'm sorry, the shliach came back. It doesn't say who he was. I'm sorry. Yes, he was. Shmuel bar Abba was a shliach. So when Shmuel bar Abba came back and he successfully retrieved the money, Rav Papa was so excited. Rav Papa went out to greet Shmuel bar Abba to all the way to Tavach, which was far away. He was so excited that he successfully retrieved the money that was owed him. So the question is, basically, this Gemara is saying you can never write a power of attorney because I have to be magnet with Agav Karka. You find nowadays when we have such a power of attorney, we don't have such a thing. So Tosha actually discusses this, and Tosha says, "Mashakosin bar Shah v'kendesi loy dalet amos bechatzeri." In the nusach of the Harsha, it says, "I was magnet him. I was magnet for amos mechotzer to be mekayim this very thing." But Zok Tosha says it's lav dafka because you don't have to, and he says that we write our shahs anyway. Because Mashakois and Harsha, afiloishim she'ein lam karka, you don't even have to have karka to write a Harsha. How could you be makne it to anybody with agav? You have no karka to give him. Nevertheless, you can still do it. Yesh mefarshim mishum daidos paldin kamei edem dami. If I have a dos paldin saying that I'm giving this to Pliny, so that works. It becomes his, and that's how you could make a power of attorney. So a power of attorney can be made, even though you're not being makne to the power of attorney. The nechosim that you want him to be a power of attorney over using kinyan.
What's the ofti from kinyan that he's going right away?
Yeah, that's right.
So that means if that nicht warten until
he goes back. That's right.
The question is, nicht who says that? Who says that when he came here he's living? So maybe in this day or two, is just hour.
Good child. I don't know. I hear. Not so nice a carrot.
Any star, even a get, aren't you worried that he died?
So I guess if we know he made a kinagav, wait a couple of days, have him make a kinagav, come back here and say a testimony. He did a kinagav. Once he did a kinagav, it doesn't matter if he died. It's minor. Right? So there'll be a delay to get the kinagav done. But once it's done, it doesn't matter if he dies. So we learned that if you pay the keren and not the chaimish, and you swore on the chaimish, you now have to treat the chaimish like keren, and you'll have to pay a chaimish of a chaimish. Alma chumsha mamanu. You see that the chaimish is not a knas. The chaimish is considered actual money, and therefore the emayis. And if the nigzal dies, it's not just a knas; it's money that's owed from the gazan to the nigzal, and therefore mishal mila yarshim, the yarshim will have to pay. If the Gazlan dies, Mishal Yarshin, his Yarshin will have to pay. So I jumped ahead. Rashi says, Alma Chumsha Mamanu is from the fact that the Mishnah says, Ein Tzarech Leilach Achara. It says you don't have to run after him for the Chaimish, but it is his. Even though you don't have to run after him for the Chaimish to return the Chaimish, but the Chaimish still does belong to the Nigzal. It's not a Knas. So therefore, if he dies, the Yorshim of the Gazlan have to still see to it that the Nigzal gets paid. The Imayis Gazlan Mashama Yorshim. And the Gemara goes weiter. Utananami, you have another riot to this fact. Because it says, Nasan is a Karen, the Nishbal HaChaimish, Hari Moisef Chaimish HaChaimish. So you see the Chaimish once it's kapaskin that you pay a chaimish, it becomes a moment. And if you're koifer on it, it'll be mechayiv you another chaimish. Al mechom shemamen. Utani nami hachi. And we learned to Brisa to support this as well. Hagoyz chaver, someone stole from his friend. The mishvaloi, and he swore to him that he didn't steal. Umeis, and he died. Yorshin mishalman keren v'chaimish. The Yorshin have to pay. The Yorshin of the Gazlan have to pay to the nigzal a keren and the chaimish. But upturim in ashim. But you put them in the carbon because it's like a chat shemesu v'ilel. Even if the father had already set aside a carbon and was maklish a carbon, once he dies, they're not makriv that carbon. It's a mesu v'ilel. So by chat shemesu v'ilel, that the animal's left to die. An ashim that was mesu v'ilel, there you're actually stoyev and you could sell it, but you for sure don't bring it as a carbon. Practically v'yarshim b'nei shlume chumshid avu and havu. You tell me that the Yarshim can pay the Chaimish for their fathers? Or a mini, we have a kasha. Adayin ani omer. And Rashi tells us this is a middle of a sentence. So the Reisha in Teres Kahanim says, Asher gozal al gizei loy hu moisav Chaimish v'loy al gzei lasov. You're not mechuyev to pay the Chaimish for a theft that your father did. Adayin ani omer. Amosai, when don't you have to pay the Chaimish for your father? That's bizman shaloi nishba loyu v'loyav. If no one ever swore that falsely that they don't have the money of the nigzal, there you don't have to pay a chaimish. Or hu v'loyav. Let's say he swore that no, they're in the estate. There is no money here belonging to the nigzal, but the father never made it to shvur. Or even if the father swore while he was alive that he doesn't have anything of the nigzal, and then the father died, there's still no chiyuv on the Yorshim to pay back the chaimish. But what about huva of it? What if say the father swore while he's alive, I don't have anything of the nigzal here, and then the son as well swore again, we in our estate don't have any money belonging to the nigzal. Maybe there the son would have to pay a chaimish. Minayin that even there he doesn't have to pay a chaimish. Tabloim asher gozal v'asher oshak. This son didn't do gzela. So even though he swore falsely, it's like a shavuos bitui. Might be a false shvua, but it's not the shvua that's machayv him the chaimish, as per the Hasham says. So what shver over here is, you see clearly that the chaimish is not moment. Here it says clearly that this child does not pay the chaimish. So how could you say that the chaimish is moment and the child pays the chaimish? It's very simple. In the case where he was moida, so Rashi's kan showed the offer b'chayav. If the father was already moida after he swore falsely, he was moida in his lifetime that I swore falsely. Now there's a chiyuv to pay a chaimish is chal. So if the father did a textbook case of a sham gzelos, he stole, he swore falsely, and then he was moida. So now there was a chiyuv to pay a chaimish triggered. If he dies after that point, yes, his children have to pay that chaimish as well. So shahayda ava b'chayiv achshen nishvav and nischayiv loy chumsha. They're mishama yarshim, and the bride is speaking with they never came clean. V'shaloy hayda v'kosal kadat hashta b'loy hayda loy av v'loy ben. Nobody ever admitted anything. That's why there's no chiyuv to pay chaimish. If no one admitted anything, so what do you mean the chaimish you don't pay? Kerinami loy mishal. There's no liability here. There's no item here. You wouldn't pay anything. We have no verification of anything. And if you're going to say in the chanami, the pasuk is talking about the chaimish. But if either the keren you don't pay either. Nobody ever admitted it. But if the bride is focusing on the chaimish to say that it's put on the chaimish, isn't it obvious? Remember the keren mishalim. Isn't it obvious that he pays keren? And the truth is, we have actually a brisa that says beferish that the keren is paid. And again, you have this nusach. I would have thought, when do I have to pay back the keren that my father actually stole? If either both him and his father swore that they don't have anything of the nigzal, or but what if neither of them ever swore falsely? Who said bechlal that I have to give back the gzela that my father stole? Talmud loymar gzela v'oishek avoid bikot. Yes, Talmud. we have a limud that in fact the Karen it's got to go back. Now this is a yesh Talmud. We have a limud. What does it mean? Rav Huna said this over. Yesh Talmud that you have to pay back your child has to pay back the Karen, even though there was no shvu at all. Amalei Rabba Bare. Rab.
You steal something. Pay it back.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So we're gonna address it very shortly. Muddy's asking very good. I have his car here. Why wouldn't I have to give it back? Right? Okay, he's talking about Amalei Rabba Bare. Yesh Talmud Kamar. Mar, do you mean to say that there's a pasuk beferish to be mechayiv meet the son to give back the Karen? Or you Talmud Kamar? Or maybe it just means misvara, you have your understanger, give it back. But there's no pasuk specifically addressing. Or you Talmud Kamar. Amalei Yesh Talmud Kamina. I actually mean the pasuk specifically addresses this scenario that if you have something here that your father stole, you have to pay back. He said it from a ribuy the croy. So Frank the Gemara, Elamai lav hoida. What do you mean he wasn't moida? If he wasn't moida, how is anything happening? Dr. Gemara, loy hoida aviv v'hoida benoi. If the father never admitted that he had it, but the son admitted, yes, I do have here the gzela, I have to give that back. That he will have to give back. Loy hoida aviv v'hoida benoi. Karen Mishalom. That's when the son has to give back to Karen because he's admitting that he has something that belongs to an exile. There, you don't bring a chaimish. Why? Because the pasuk says only if you stole. If we're talking about a case as well where the son at one point swore, so why wouldn't he pay? Right? We had all those examples. Why tak isn't he chayiv? He has in his possession property of an exile, and he swore that he doesn't. So why wouldn't he be mechuyev to pay the chaimish? When the chayiv b'noi chaimish today, Amri after the Gemara b'she'en gezela kayemes. It's not shot that the animal that the father stole is still right here. It's not here. Now it's a question of paying back money. If it's a matter of paying back money, Dr. Rashi, b'she'en gezela kayemes, the lav alei rami l'shlumei. A son does not have to pay from cash the gzela of his father. What if someone steals money and he gives it to his kids? So you would think that his kids are mechuyev to pay back. Petur and milashalom. The kids don't have any chiyuv to pay back. They only have to give it back if it's their bad. Therefore, hilchach, kafar, even though he was kafir on it, kefiras devarim ba'almahi. It's just false shvua, but it doesn't fall under the category of someone who stole. So if the gzela is not kayemes, the son has no chiyuv to give anything back. So why are you saying we need a case where he's mechuyev to give back to Karen, but the chaimish doesn't have to? Zok Gemara lo tzricha de ikach rights. It's speaking where there was a chrais nechasim, meaning v'amrina lakaman the meniach avin achrais nechasim karkois chayav and lahasuk they cover of you. So if they have karka of the father, they would be mechuyev to pay. Okay, we'll stop here. You might think we didn't get to the bottom of Amud. We did, because the Bach takes out all these two lines. So we finished Amud. Misham tomorrow we're going to